Hello and welcome to the Rockies Now podcast. This is the episode number 73 of the podcast. Hello, everyone. My name is Steven, along with the co host Tom and Adam. How are we boys doing tonight?
Doing good. Thanks for asking. It's good to be back.
Yeah, we're kind of at the point of the off season where we're just fried. We're just ready for baseball. I
Yeah,
mean,
man.
it's been a long off season, and plus, who cares about the Super Bowl anyway? Like, we already know who's going to win. So whatever.
Eagles by 16.
60. Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah, for me, I just hope that again. I've told many people at work. I just hope that there's an asteroid that hits the stadium and boom,
if
baseball
the
happens.
Eagles win, I'm hoping that Saquon Barkley is Super Bowl MVP.
Did you see there was a recent somebody posted a video of them, like, of course they're probably just getting ready or like for preparations, but somebody predicted the final score and they showed the Eagles champions banner in the stadium. So I'm like, hey, that's a good sign. It's scripted. So go Eagles, go. So to wrap up this final episode of the offseason, technically for the Rockies, even though we still have a few more before the regular season starts in late March, we decided to do a little bit of a shorter episode tonight just to save some time, but kind of just go over a quick recap of the Rockies offseason and kind of give our thoughts and grade them a little bit. And finally topping it all off with some thoughts on maybe who the Rockies should get as a reliever, because a couple of weeks ago at Rockies Fest, if you were there, you probably heard it, that the Rockies are hoping or they're going to try to get at least one or two relievers for the bullpen, which very, very young. And I think, the Rockies do have a couple of veterans in there, but I think they would like to have one or two more to kind of even that one out. And I really like the bullpen. I think we all can agree that the bullpen could be the brightest spot of this team heading into this season. I think it will be. I think it's got a chance to be really, really good. So to start off, so the offseason kicked off on not a lot of people's cup of tea. The Rockies, their first announcement of the offseason was re-signing Bud Black to a one-year deal through 2025. And I think we mentioned this in the very first offseason podcast that we did back in October, is that if the Rockies do not improve and they actually go backward or stay about the same, 100, 101, 102 losses, I think it's safe to say that Bud Black will or should lose his job. The Rockies, they're in a position now that they should start improving, that they need to start playing the young players. Because if the Rockies are just showing no improvement whatsoever, they need to make a move in management, and that is by getting rid of Bud Black. But we're graceful Rockies fans. It's not easy, but we'll take one more year Bud Black. But if it doesn't work, then he should go. But anyways, the Rockies announced that back in October. Shortly thereafter, the Rockies released some news that they released the following players of Jay Cave, Dakota Hudson, and Peter Lambert. Not big surprising news there. Nobody really expected Jay Cave to come back. Some thought maybe he would come back as a bench utility player. He was a fan favorite in Colorado this past year. Dakota Hudson had a horrible Rockies season, to put it nicely. And as of right now, I don't think he'll pitch again unless if he just gets signed on a minor league deal. And then Peter Lambert, he's gone as well. So again, not super surprising moves. And then there was news coming out that the Rockies, they were going to dump payroll, make some trades, and the first notable guy that we lost really was Daniel Bard. He's out. He's a free agent. And then the Rockies made a trade for infielder Owen Miller from the Brewers. That was a little bit of a sneaky trade there, but mainly that is for depth. It's not for the major leagues. I feel like the Rockies were kind of looking around the second base pool and trying to figure that out. Tovar and Doyle, they won their Gold Gloves. Jacob Stallings came back on a one-year deal. And then we picked up Jimmy Herget off of waivers, who I think could be a sneaky pitcher. I mean, he doesn't have the eye-popping stats, but he does have a 3.54 ERA in his 6 seasons in baseball, with a 1.174 WHIP with 141 strikeouts. I believe he has a curveball, sinker, four-seam fastball, slider, and a changeup. So he has a sidearm release, and that could be quite quirky, a little bit at Coors Field. I feel like the last righty guy that did that was Pat Neshek back in 2017. Good old Pat Neshek. Zach Veen added to the 40-man roster, and then the Rockies re-signed Sam Hilliard, brought in Kyle Farmer on a one-year deal with an option for 2026, and he'll probably be a bench utility player in there. And then Tyler Estrada comes on. Austin Nola signed to a minor league deal. So yeah, and that's basically been most of the moves. Of course, recently Nick Martini and Keston Hira have been signed again for depth purposes. They're not going to be on the 40-man roster, or I should say on the 26-man roster for opening day, more than likely. But it's been somewhat of an active offseason. It's not huge splashy moves. Again, the Rockies, they're in a position where they're rebuilding. But, I'll hand it off to Tom here first. But really, Tom, I mean, this is no big surprise. I mean, it's not like we were heading into the offseason saying, oh, the Rockies, they have a big list of things that they need to do. No, really, it's just, again, it's a part of the rebuild. It's about building up that depth, especially on the bench, which has been weak for so many years here in Colorado. So I thought this offseason was fine. Again, I'm not going to say it was bad. It's whatever, especially where we're at in the rebuild. So I don't know, Tom, what do you think?
Well, they weren't going to be shopping at top shelf. They were definitely going to be shopping in the bargain section. Try to, as you could say, get somebody on a low, I don't want to, kind of a low risk, high reward kind of thing, where you sign a player to a one-year deal at a low dollar amount, and maybe try and flip them for something good, for something at the trade deadline. Like I said, they weren't going to be getting Juan Soto, even though there was, I think there was a Instagram page or chat log about Ron Soto, future Rocky. As much as that would have been awesome, it wasn't going to happen. But they've made incremental stuff, and we've talked about it. This could be, I think I commented this the other day. I can't remember which platform I made the comment on, but this could be the year where you could finally see this core start to take shape, and they're going to find out where their weaknesses they need to supplement with veteran or free agent, with veteran signings or off the trade market, and just kind of round out to hopefully 2026 being like, okay, this is a year where we can move up and start making ourselves into a playoff contender. Now, of course, as I think Adam commented this on our last episode or a couple episodes ago, there are a couple of notable ones. Most notably is, can Nolan Jones become 2023 Nolan, excuse me, I keep forgetting the years here. It's been so long. And then I think, of course, just finding out who is part of that next core. We know who is Tovar. Somebody commented just trade McMahon already. No, not right now. Listen, I don't think it's the time to do that. It's really the time to make that decision. And then I personally am looking forward to, there's two guys I really like to jump on to making the step forward. I really want to see how Michael Toglia does for a full season. And I definitely think the dark horse person in this young core that we're starting to build here, I'm excited to see how Jordan Beck does playing every day. Again, Tennessee Volunteer, we have a good history with Tennessee Volunteers. So we'll see. But ultimately, I think just going back to the offseason, it was a good offseason given where we are. As we were discussing our pre-show meeting, there's two signings I think that'd be very interesting to come to Coors Field, but I'll talk about that when we get to that later. But all in all, given where we are, it's not a bad offseason. I give it, a C at the best. I'm not going to give it an A because obviously nothing outstanding, but I give it a C overall.
Yeah, I'd like to bring up a point, Steven. I don't think I heard you say, but you may have. Charlie Blackmon retired.
Yeah.
Right. So
sorry, Charlie Blackmon fans. Everyone can tell.
So on Tom's mention of McMahon, he's the leader in the clubhouse. You cannot trade that guy right now for that very reason. Plus, he doesn't want to go anywhere. I mean, they had that conversation last year and pretty much decided, yeah, I don't want to go anywhere. So we want to go young, but we don't want to just get rid of our veteran leader at this point either. So then there's really no reason to get rid of him. There's nobody that is coming up anytime soon that's going to take that spot. You know what I mean? I don't think they have designs on Condon being third base, and he's not going to play with the Rockies this year anyway. So But I agree with both of you. The offseason was pretty much what we expected it to be. We're not going to go out and sign Juan Soto. We're not going to go out and, trade for big names. We're not going to be involved in Pete Alonso. We don't need to be. We have young guys that we're finally giving a chance to play this year. And even more young guys that probably aren't going to be on the opening day roster, but we'll see them later in the year, like Zach Veen. A ton of outfield talent that the Rockies have that they probably want to put on display this year, and we need Nolan Jones to be Nolan Jones. I fully believe in him because we've seen the talent that he has, and he's an outstanding baseball player when he's healthy. And obviously last year he just couldn't get healthy. And so hopefully we're not dealing with Chris Bryant Jr. in that case, because we want him to be able to get healthy and stay healthy. And I think Stallings coming back is a big deal too, because as much as we want to see Romo back there, you still need a guy that's going to teach him how to manage a staff and catch a ball game and do all the small things that a good catcher does. That doesn't happen overnight. So to ease him into that spot, I think it was the right decision for Stallings to come back. And plus, he had an 810 OPS last year. Why would we not want him back? He was good last year. So yeah, and to Tom's point too, with the relievers, there's some names out there that we're going to discuss that they should definitely be looking at. But we are all in agreement that the Rockies have a ton of young talent and potential in this bullpen, and I'm excited to watch the Rockies this year, man. I think everybody should be.
Yeah, I feel like they're a team that not a lot of people are expecting to do well whatsoever. I mean, the Nationals are obviously the team that everyone's looking out in the National League. I mean, they got Dylan Cruz now. They're going to get Jackson Holiday more than likely. The Nationals are going to be a team that that's going to be a problem in that division. And who knows, maybe that's going to be a team we'll face in the playoffs in the future, right? And I would look forward to that, right? Yeah, I just, is this for me? I just feel like if the Rockies do not lose 100 games, if they lose even a 95 wins, that's improvement. I don't care what anyone says, that's improvement. And I know a lot of people want to see 80-80 or a 500 team. On paper, I don't think this is a 500 team by one bit, but I do believe that there are pieces that can help us get to that point to where we can get above 500, get back to the playoffs. And you're talking about the core four guys, right? You got Tovar, Doyle, Nolan Jones, and then, whoever I'm missing, McMahon, right? And it's just, and there's more coming, right? Up in the minor league system, Zach Veen, right? He's going to make his debut this year. And I was thinking about this the other day. There's so many talented young players on this Rockies team and in the farm system that they might have to trade some people, because that's how talented I feel like the Rockies team is going to be in the next couple of years. And I know some people will disagree with me on that because, everything that's going on and the management and the ownership. But I truly believe that we're entering an age to where the Rockies, they're kind of up in where they were in 2015, 2016. That's where it feels like to me. Now, things never happen the same way twice, right? I get that. But still, there's one thing about baseball is there's ups and down seasons, right? And we're seeing these areas in these years to where teams are good and they're bad, right? And I just feel like the Rockies are entering that age to where I feel like where the Avs were 7-8 years ago when they drafted Miko and they were calling up Makar a number of years back, right? And they got that group together and look, they won a Stanley Cup championship. And I feel like the Rockies, they need to replicate that. But also, if you're looking at a team to replicate, if you're the Rockies, would be the Denver Broncos. I mean, they had they were deep in cap, right, with Russell Wilson, arguably one of the worst NFL contracts in history, and yet they go to the playoffs the following year with a rookie quarterback. They let him play. They didn't give the ball to Wilson or Stidham. They let Bo Nix rip, right? And I know this is a Rockies podcast, but they can replicate that. You can't give playing time to guys that are 38, 39 years old. No offense to Charlie Blackmon, because I mean, he's the face of the franchise, or used to be now. And that's another good thing too, is I forgot to mention, and again, people probably clicked out already because I didn't mention Charlie Blackmon, but he is returning to the Rockies front office. And I think that's a good thing. And here, it's awesome seeing former Rockies players return to the organization. And it's not just Charlie Blackmon and Scott Oberg. He's working in the Rockies front office. I think as a pitching coordinator for the minor leagues. Tony Walters is working as a bench coach for the ACL team in Arizona. I think Aaron Cook, Jorge De La Rosa, even Cargo has helped the minor league system, at some points. And I just feel like we've seen a change from what it was a few years ago, right? Where we're starting to see more people come in, and there's a transition, and I think we're seeing that right now. And as much as it stinks, and as much as the media says, "Oh, the Rockies will never win," I refuse to believe that. I feel like we have the pieces to win, and I think we'll be a dark horse team this year and in the years forward. But again, I'm not going to go out and say that we're going to be a wild card contending team this year. But I do believe that we're seeing the page turn very, very quickly, and I think this is going to be the year. I really do believe that. But as we start to wrap things up, again, a very short episode tonight, since we're just kind of wrapping up our thoughts on the offseason. Not really much to talk about. We were talking about this before the show, of course, and about some bullpen pieces the Rockies could get, because at FanFest, Bill Schmidt laid out the idea that they're not done yet, and that they would like to add at least one or two guys into the bullpen, the young bullpen that did extremely well in the latter half of last year. And there were some names that we're going to mention that we mentioned earlier before we started. That could be Rockies targets. And of course, one of them is off the list that just recently got signed, and that's Ryan Brazier, who went to the Cubs. We all agree that is just, it feels like that's a Rocky signing in the sand, right? That's a Rocky you want to get. That's a pitcher you want to get. And unfortunately that didn't happen, but there's still a lot of good arms on this list for relievers that I think that the Rockies could definitely afford. I don't want to hear excuses like saying, well, this yada, yada, yada. First guy on my list that I really noticed that I really liked was Scott Barlow. The guy is 32 years of age, and I believe according to MLB.com, he has roughly a 1.1 WAR. It doesn't scream out, superb, but it's decent. It's not a negative WAR, right? And he's a good late inning bullpen guy that's had success in his career. He's a guy I really like. And then the one that really stands out to me is Brooks Raley, 37 years of age. I know the age is a little bit up there, but I believe he's a left-handed pitcher out of the bullpen. I think he could do really, really well at Coors Field, or at least on the road, that is. And I think, if he gets some playing time as a Rocky, and the Rockies could use some lefty relievers, especially with the injury concerns of Lucas Gilbreth, who's been out quite a bit with injury with Tommy John. And he was scratched this past year a little bit to where he couldn't pitch, and the Rockies had to put him back on the IL. So you can't really trust Gilbreth. I love Gilbreth. He's been actually one of the best Rockies relievers over the last couple of years. But why not get a Brooks Raley? And then I think the last guy that was on my list that I was really intrigued by was Phil Maton, who was a solid reliever for the Astros a couple of years ago. And I remember watching on TV, and I'm like, man, I wish he was on the Rockies bullpen, because we could use a guy like Phil Maton. The guy's only 32 years of age. I know his WAR is 0.7, but why not get a Phil Maton, who is, a guy that I think could be a closer or at least a setup guy in the bullpen, and then give the ball to Victor Vodnik to close the ninth inning. I like that Phil. I just like Phil Maton. I just love the name. I just feel like that's a Rocky name. I don't know why. It's just, that's the way it is. But why not get something? And those guys are affordable too. It's not like these guys are, electric, guys that sign 3, 4, or 5 year deals. No, these are 1 year deals. So why not go get a Phil Maton? So those are my three guys. So I'm curious to see what Tom and Adam have. So Tom, what do you have?
Well, just a comment about your changes that could come in the offseason. Don't get I think encourage people, all our fans, not to get attached to some prospects, because we're going to see some of them dealt, because the Rockies do have trouble in some aspects of luring certain free agents to Coors Field, i.e. pitchers. Instead of overpaying for pitchers, why not get rid of some of these prospects who all are not going to make the major league team, by the way? See if you can trade them and package them for some solid players that other teams are willing to depart with. So that's something that we could be seeing maybe next offseason. We'll have to wait and see. There's three pitchers I had in mind, two relievers and one starter. Here's a starter that I have in mind. He may be 36 years old, but he is actually kind of a bit of an ageless wonder, and he's producing very well throughout his career. Jose Quintana, he's a lefty, not a big power pitcher, focuses a lot more on keeping the ball down. His main pitches, he does have a sinker, cutter, and he does see a curveball. I know curveballs are a little scary when throwing at Coors Field, but again, former White Sox, I do really like him. And again, he's 36 years old. He has been productive. Last year with the Mets, he had a 3.75 ERA in, hang on, I just got to double check the innings. I don't want to give the wrong number. He pitched 170 in the third innings. So that's, and the whip, his career whip is 1.28. So he does limit damage on the base pass and with the walks. So that's a starter. And that I would definitely think the Rockies should look into. He's not going to cost a lot of money. And last year, his overall WAR was 2.3. So again, would be a candidate to be in the rotation. But there's two question marks I have with this rotation. Again, I'm not trying to be mean here. Senzatella and German Marquez, they're coming off serious injuries. I just can't see them being a guaranteed lock spot. No, let me phrase this properly. I don't want to put a lot of reliance on those guys getting over around 100 plus innings because, again, coming off serious injuries, haven't pitched routinely every fifth day for a while. I don't want to leave it to chance. Quintana, like I said, he's been reliable. He's had at least 150 plus innings throughout his career. Why not give somebody you can rely to cover a lot of innings? Because the Rockies are going to need to cover a lot of innings. I don't want to put that stress on the bullpen. And speaking of which, pivoting to relievers, here's one we talked about in our meeting. I don't know if what his market really is. I'm curious to see what it is. Kenley Jansen, not a guy who relies a lot on power anymore. He has sinker, cutter, slider. The ones he uses the most are the cutter and the slider. The slider plays well at Coors Field. I like cutters. It's a very unique pitch. You can have downward movement. You can have inward movement. So I think, hold on. Let me double check his age. I think he's 30. Hold on. Oh, darn. Hold on. There's the page. He's 37. Again, he doesn't have a lot of emphasis on power. Why not bring in a veteran guy maybe into a setup man or a closer's role? And here's another guy who's almost pushing 40. What about David Robertson? He has been kind of a bit of an ageless wonder. He is not a big fast. He doesn't even throw a four-seam fastball anymore. He throws focused on a cutter, slider, and a knuckle curve. Again, I know he's coming up on 40, but last several years, again, last year with Texas, he pitched 72 innings to the tune of a 3.0 ERA even, 65 and a third innings the year before that, 63 and 2/3. Again, he's been a solid, reliable reliever. His career ERA is 2.91, if you can believe that. So again, he's not going to, his WAR was 1.75. Again, those are three solid veteran options to add to either our pen or the rotation that I think the Rockies should definitely look into. And again, they're not going to cost a ton of money.
Yeah, I really liked the David Robertson. He was one guy on my list, probably number 3 on my list. The Rockies have a lot of young guys who know how to throw hard, but they don't know how to pitch yet. So bringing in a veteran, especially a guy who's saved games in, the playoffs, he has a ton of experience. He's played on different teams. He's played in different cities. I feel like a guy like that would be invaluable to the Rockies if they were to bring him in and maybe use him as a closer to start the year and then kind of wean him off and maybe trade him at the deadline or something. But somebody that the Vodniks of the world can learn from as to how to actually put hitters away, because we all know Vodnik has an electric arm, but he hasn't quite learned how to pitch, in my opinion, which isn't a slight on him. It's just part of the development process with these young guys. So that's one name. Phil Maton is one that I really, really, really like. I have no idea why he's available, but I think the Rockies really need to jump on that. If you look at his career numbers, his career whip is 1.29, and you're telling me that wouldn't be the best on the Rockies right now, and that's a guy that you can depend on. He can close, he can set up, he can be a middle reliever, he can do a lot of things for the bullpen. Very versatile arm, and if you build up his value, you can get rid of him at the trade deadline too. So it's all about bringing in the right pieces to supplement your bullpen, but also being smart about it and making sure that we're getting some value back for these additions as well. And one thing too, Steve, that I wanted to mention when it comes to the Rockies not spending and people having high expectations, true Rockies fans understand that the only time the Rockies have ever been good is when they had homegrown talent, pretty much the entire team. So we have to this is the route that the Rockies have to go. You've said it. Everybody says it all the time. We do not bring in high value or big name pitching free agents into Colorado. They're not going to come here. And the other thing too to consider when we're talking about bringing in bullpen arms, some of those guys aren't going to want to come here regardless of the fact that they're not signed. So, we can talk about Rayleigh and Maton and Robertson and Kenley Jansen and things like that. And it would be great to have them. But I think it's good to look at the other side of the spectrum from their point of view and say, I don't want to pitch in Colorado, especially in my career. So we will have some of that to deal with as well. And I think you guys will have some thoughts on that. But I think the Rockies can supplement their bullpen with a couple arms. We've already talked about how talented they are, and the results aren't there quite yet, but they're very, very talented. And so I feel like the Rockies are in a good place to be able to add a Maton and Matt Moore's another guy that you could add. He's always been a solid guy. He can long relieve. He can set up. He's done a lot of things in his career too, and he's just an innings eater.
Yeah.
That the Rockies would be able to rely on. So there's a couple names out there that the Rockies can go after, but I think it's important for people to keep in perspective that this is where the team is. This is going to be an evaluation year. We got to see who, like you said, who's going to be part of the core. But it always helps to have veteran leadership around.
Tyler Matzik is still available. Former Rocky. Why not? Yeah.
He might not want to come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we do have a comment here, and I think Tom would like to answer this question from Anthony, and Anthony has, his thoughts on that. So Tom, why don't you go ahead?
Well, you can. Pitchers would come here, but the only issue is you'd have to overpay if you want the top tier ones. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, remember the offseason before the 2018 season, you signed Wade Davis, Jake Bird, and Brian Shaw. Brian Shaw and Jake McGee were overpays. Because
very much so.
But Wade Davis, I would say, was at about market value. You get that wasn't much of an overpay. You got more out of him. I mean, people come at me sometimes. He does hold the record for most single season most saves by a Rockies pitcher in a single season at 43. And people come at me, oh, well, he was still bad after that. Well, hey, 43 saves is 43 wins. So,
well, when the Rockies added Wade Davis too, his stuff plays, right? You thought that cutter and, he keeps the ball down. Brian Shaw, I knew that was going to be a disaster because he throws a Frisbee.
Well, yeah.
Frisbee slider.
His cutter is a little different than Wade Davis's or your Mariano Rivera's. His cutter has a really odd movement. It doesn't break much on the plane. It just kind of goes in a little bit toward. But, to go back to, we did lure a big-time free agent pitcher, but it was a bad signing, in Hampton. But, free agents pitchers would come here. The only problem is if you want the top shelf ones, you're gonna have to really overpay for them. And I don't think we want a Mike Hampton's repeat in history. So again, I think the guys we mentioned tonight, we can get at fair market value, and they do serve value to us, especially if we can flip them at the trade deadline. The only issue is, of course, like I said earlier in the episode, the best chance for Rockies to lure talented pitchers on the outside is try to trade for them. But of course, there is that adjustment period, and it's the same for position players because going back and forth between altitude, even the Denver Bronco players and the Avalanche and the Colorado Avalanche players are commenting this. It's challenging, but again, like we always comment, the Rockies, just like some other teams, the best way they build their best rosters is through the system, especially pitchers.
Yeah, the year the Rockies had their best pitching ever, they should have went to the World Series, but the front office didn't want to add to the offense. And, those are the times when the Rockies those are the times when the Rockies are capitalizing on their young talent. They're developing the talent right, and that's when they're good. That's how they have to do it. That's how we have to do it here. We just have to be a little bit patient.
Mhm.
If the Rockies were going out and signing free agents, I would be upset personally.
Yeah, don't go out and get like a Jerkson Profar, bring him back, or don't go out and get a Christian Walker for no reason, or Pete Alonso.
No, that doesn't make any
It'd be
sense.
fun though. Like, don't get me wrong, it would be fun to see Pete Alonso hit bombs in Coors Field, but it's just like we don't need him. I mean, his age is, we got to play the younger players. It's just that the thing is that the reason why I'm happy that they're not going out and getting free agents like crazy is because if they were doing that, it's kind of like Moneyball, where they're bringing in David Justice, right, to help season ticket holders, right? No, they're believing in their young guys, and that's the test, is believing in what you have or what you're developing, and that's a key thing right here. And
Michael
so,
I'm sorry.
Again, Michael Toglia, the guy finally got his playing time this past year. And the dude went off. At one point, we thought he was going to get 30-plus home runs. That's how good he was. Yeah, the batting average might not be pretty, but who cares about batting average these days? I mean, it's just, you got to win the ball game. And defensively, he's going to win a Gold Glove, man. And so it's just, again, Juan Soto would have been cool. And I liked how that one Rockies fan emailed Dick Monfort about Juan Soto. It was hilarious. So shout out to that guy. But yeah, man, if you're a Rockies fan, there's a lot to be excited about. And I know, again, there's a lot of negative Nancy's out there on Twitter, which is a very dark place to be these days. But there's a lot to be excited about, and I know there's not much to be a positive about. Just looking at the prospects, just watch more Rockies minor league games. It's, last year Spokane won, and this is one thing that we kind of forgot to talk to Kate about the other week when we were talking about him. I wanted to talk a little bit more about Spokane and their run to the playoffs in the Northwest League, right? Kyle Karros won the MVP in that league, and not to mention Jordan Beck a few years back, he won that MVP in that league too. So, and not to mention, I want to say Spokane won the most. It was some award for the minor leagues, one of the best minor league teams in minor league baseball. So it goes to show you that the Rockies have a farm system, to where you look at the recent rankings by, I believe, MLB.com or Pipeline, whatever it was, whatever outline it was, or outlet it was. But I think the Angels were like dead last. And at least we're not the Angels fans, right? And, it's just, we're in a good spot right now. And I think we're heading toward the right direction. There's a lot to be excited about. And so, it's not easy, because right now for me, it's just like, okay, I want to see good baseball this year, but I'm okay with another down season as long as we see improvement. And in regards to the draft, because I know some people wanted to hear our thoughts on this, I'm fine being at number 4. And yeah, it sucks that we're not going to get Jackson Holiday, because we were crossing our fingers that we were going to get the number 1 spot, which the draft lottery sucks. I hate it now.
You mean Ethan Holiday?
Ethan Holiday, sorry. Yeah,
That's
well,
okay.
we could trade for Jackson either way, but no. Yeah, Ethan Holiday, he's going to be a really good player, but it's more risk, as I mentioned before on my personal Twitter, is that there's a lot more risk, though, to high school players. Zach Veen, he was a high school player. There's a lot more risk goes into that. Now, some of them do pan out, and I do believe that Zach Veen, as long as he can stay healthy, which Adam alluded to a couple of weeks ago, he could be the light to the fire of this team, right? He could light up this team, really push this team, and carry it on his back, right? Ethan Holiday, I think, could definitely be that guy. You just hope that he's not, a player that just doesn't have the numbers to be a regular day ball player. I think he will be, but regardless, going back to the point, the Rockies are going to get a solid player at number 4, regardless. I mean, Arnold, really solid left-handed pitcher. Really like that guy. Laviolette, I think he's the outfielder. I really like him. But I really do think the Rockies are going to go for pitching. But again, you never know. Sometimes in MLB drafts, you don't want to get just a pitcher or hitter. Sometimes you want to get the best player available, even if it's a catcher. I don't know. Yeah, it's just you want to get the best player available. So we're on the way up. the Rockies, they're gonna get better this year. Mark my words. And I think we're gonna see some exciting stuff in the next couple of years. And I will say this one last thing before we sign off for tonight, because we got to head out of here. Sign Brenton Doyle to an extension, please, because
Now,
that guy,
yesterday.
15 years, whatever, keep that guy in there. Maybe not 15 years, but you get the idea.
Let's not turn let's not turn this into a whole Julio Rodriguez situation.
No, yeah, 8
Uh,
8 years is probably good.
Let's keep it under a decade.
Yeah, maybe 6 or 7. Do like what you did with Tovar. I think
we can add opt-outs. We can add option years.
Option
years. Excuse me, not opt-outs. Option years. Excuse me.
Yeah. So
but I think something that we'll want to discuss too, Steve, with the state of the Rockies is who is the correct manager to lead this team into the future, right? Is it going to be Pedro Lopez? Is it going to be Robinson Cancel? Is it going to be somebody on the current staff? That's going to be interesting to find out with the Rockies. And if they show a lot of improvement, let's say they do go 80 and 82, you bet your bottom that Bud Black will be back, and probably for more than 1 year.
We should start a hashtag. We should start a hashtag March to 95 lot to 95. Or some like less than or we could put out a poll.
Road to 95.
Or like the over or under, will the Rockies lose, or like yes or no, will the Rockies lose under 100 games or over 100 games, under or over?
Yeah,
we'll put improvement is improvement, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm pushing. I think the drive for 95 is on, man.
Just try to be better than the Marlins. Just try to be better than Miami.
Or no, be better. This
White Sox. Sorry,
no, it's okay. Hey, if you're better than those two teams, let's try and catch the Oakland A's, because I think they're the team that's right there next in front of us.
Yeah. Again, we got to head out of here, but I really like the A's. I think that again, with everything going on, I could see them being a team that surprises a lot of people. I mean, I really like the Brent Rooker extension.
I love that.
Yeah. And
as a Mariners fan, I hate this entire conversation.
Ah, sorry.
I don't like any of it.
Yeah, no.
But,
no, sorry.
No, but okay. Yeah, man, it's gonna be awesome. Again, we got a lot of baseball coming up soon. Over the next week, we got the Rockies pitchers and catchers report. Literally 1 week, I believe, from today. Rockies pitchers and catchers report. And if you follow the Rockies or Rockies players on social media, folks, you've already seen that a lot of the Rockies players and personnel are already down there in Arizona warming up. Ryan Feltner was one of the first guys to be down there. So we're at that time of year to where we can start thinking about baseball again, and it's awesome, right? It's a feeling that feels weird because you've been without baseball for so many months, and here we are. So
the best sport on the planet is back, boys.
Absolutely. And I know baseball has gotten a black eye over the last few years, but still, I think it's
the
so
MLB
good.
All-Star, the MLB All-Star game is still the more exciting All-Star game of all the
out of all of them. Yeah,
that's not even debatable.
That's not even in my mind, is that
Pro Bowl, by the way.
Or not even talk about the MLB All-Star game. Don't even mention it. It's just
if once they start playing softball like NFL plays flag, then we'll have to have a different conversation. But I think that's
the best weekend too. Best All-Star weekend. The MLB has the best, because you got the draft, all in one package, to where the NFL, the NFL draft is a lot larger, but it's it's separate. Where I feel
the Derby I was just gonna say real quick, the Derby is still awesome.
Oh, I love it.
And I was just gonna say, let's get Nolan Jones there this year.
Yeah,
at least one Rocky, just any Rocky, just one Rocky, please.
Yeah, has any Rocky won the home run derby? I don't think so.
I don't believe so. No.
Tulo came close, I believe. Yeah. Was that San Francisco?
Close, I think at one point it was in.
Tulo was San Francisco, right?
Yeah, or I know it was Matt Holliday. Matt Holliday in San Francisco in 2007, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
and then Holliday. Well, of course, Holliday was out of it, off the Rockies in 2011. But I think Holliday did pretty well in Arizona in the home run derby. Cargo.
16.
I think no, Cargo was he was in 15 or 16, but he was also in 2012 in Kansas City, I think.
And then Charlie Blackmon 17 in Miami.
I thought 17 it was Charlie's year, because against Bellinger there was that questionable last pitch to Bellinger that I feel like that was a little bit late and they counted it. I'm like, I feel like Blackman beat him a little bit, but
Real quick, I found the history. The best finish was by Larry Walker, 1997. He was the runner-up.
Cleveland.
Yep.
Oh, Cleveland. Yeah, gosh, yeah. One of these years is going to be a Rocky, and I was really hoping Trevor Story would do it in 2021 because he beat Joey Gallo. I'm like, oh, because I forget who he faced in the second round. Was it Mancini or Alonso?
No, I think it was Alonso.
Yeah, and that was kind of, I mean, Alonso.
If he beat Alonso, he would have had a smooth sailing in the finals.
Yeah, people forget how good Trey Mancini
He
was.
needs to stay healthy this year, please, Trevor. Trevor, if you're listening, man, please, we're rooting for you, man. Stay healthy.
We're cheering for you, especially in Boston.
Yeah, for the people that follow me on Twitter or haven't yet followed me on Twitter, people already know I'm a Trevor Story stan. So
we love Trevor Story.
Last question. Remember, Nolan might could get traded there.
Yeah, teammates might reunite again. And I told the boys before we started that I'd rather see Nolan on the Red Sox than the Yankees or the Dodgers. And I don't think he's going to the Dodgers. Now I think of it, he's not going to LA. As much as he would like to. And he wants to go to LA. I think he's probably going to head to Boston. But there's also a possibility as we get closer to spring training that he could still stay with St. Louis, which is idiotic. That St. Louis front office is just.
We'll trade him to. We'll trade Chris Bryant to St. Louis for Nolan Arenado.
It's a fair trade. It's one high money contract for another, and also it'd be funny. That. But real quick, funny comment: if he goes to LA, maybe the Dodgers will rework it to defer some of that money. Defer more money.
They've never done that before, have they?
Maybe.
I don't want to talk about the Dodgers.
Anyway, I think we're good.
This is not a Dodgers podcast, so we're good.
Boo. Yeah.
Almost threw up in my mouth by just saying that.
Yeah.
But anyways, folks, thank you so much for listening to this weird episode podcast talking about Rockies baseball. But folks, thank you so much for listening. We're super excited. Again, stay tuned to our social medias. We have fun content coming out. We actually had a fun one coming out. We came out today talking about German Marquez when he used to. When the National League used to have pitchers hit, that was the good days, man. I know his batting average like 240 as a hitter, but man, those were the days. But again, check out our content. Again, really cool stuff coming out. We have some new merch that's dropped recently, so go check that out. More will be dropping soon. For podcasts, we're going to come out with a really cool podcast next week, starting our Rockies position player reviews. So we're going to start doing that, talking about catchers and. Prior to the season, it's that time of year where we're getting back to baseball activities and games coming up. So exciting stuff, man. But yeah, if you don't follow us at Rockies now, follow us at Instagram, X, and Threads. And again, the usernames are right below our images and pictures and videos. And so check that out right there. And if you want to listen to our podcast, you can watch us on YouTube. Or you can listen to it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We upload every week. So check that out for sure. And we're on a road to 100 followers on YouTube. So make sure you follow us on YouTube. But anyways, folks, thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Rockies Now podcast. On behalf of myself, Adam, and Tom, we want to thank you again. And as always, go Rockies.
Road to 95.
Let's go.